Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I'm Casey Calderman. Joined with me, as always, is my co-host, Brian Mensing.
Morning.
How are you, Brian?
I get to say morning because it's morning. We don't normally do this in the morning.
Yeah, it is a morning. Brian, I hopefully has coffee there to wake up a little bit.
Yeah, my first cup of coffee for the day.
Maybe we'll need another one halfway through the show. Who knows? But yeah, we are recording this one a little early. Like Brian said, we were recording this on a Saturday. We usually record on a Sunday. Thus, with that, we will not have any box office results to go over, and there was no big movie news to talk about. So it'll be a nice, short, sweet, to the point episode as we are talking about Love, Simon here in week number 2 of our Pride movie miniseries for the month of June. And we are joined this week by Megan Snow from Aberdeen Pride over in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Megan, welcome to the show, and how are you doing on this Saturday morning?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Before we get into Love, Simon and the movie, there are a few questions I just want to ask you to get to know you, have our audience get to know you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And then right after, can you tell us about the Aberdeen Pride organization as well?
Sure. Yeah. I hate talking about myself.
We all do.
Oh God, I don't even know where to start. I live in Aberdeen. Just moved in with my girlfriend just moved in with me. I've got 2 kids. I play the ukulele. I love K-pop. I'm 27. That's pretty much all. That covers all the bases, I think, so far. And then, I got 2 cats too, so that's really important.
That's maybe the most important part is if you have cats, right? Or not. Yeah.
I think so.
It's that they live with the cats, not the cats live with them.
Yeah. That's very, very true. But I lived in Aberdeen a few years ago. I moved there. I'm from Pierre, South Dakota originally. And I moved to Aberdeen after I graduated high school. And then I lived there for 4.5-ish years, and then moved back to Pierre. I was married to a guy at the time, and we moved back to Pierre because of a job opportunity, and we lived back in Pierre for about 5 years before I moved back to Aberdeen recently, within the last year or so. So when I got back to Aberdeen, when I lived in Pierre, I was part of the group that put together Pierre's first Pride Festival. So I thought that was something that I wanted to bring to Aberdeen if it wasn't already here. So I didn't really get the chance to last year because I had just moved back in last May. And I was like, I don't have time. This is just already May. And but this year I was like sitting around February or March, kind of getting really fed up with legislative session stuff. And so I just kind of was like, okay, I think this is, a good time to see if I can find a place that would be maybe willing to put on a small Pride event and kind of test out the waters and see if this is something that we can continue to do in Aberdeen. And I'm friends with, I used to work at the Red Rooster Coffee Shop, and I'm friends with the owner. And so I reached out to him, and he was more than willing to help out. And so that's kind of where it started. And it's kind of expanded a little bit. We now have an after party drag show that's happening after that, like at night for people 21 and above at a bar down the street. And a lot of people seem pretty excited about it. So I'm hoping that all the people that have expressed interest actually show up, and that hopefully we can do a bigger one next year. So
great.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I've noticed here, even like you said in the last year or so, is how many different organizations have popped up in South Dakota itself. Because, obviously, I think maybe the biggest one in the state, at least, is probably here in Sioux Falls. But then you see ones pop up in Pierre and Aberdeen, and Vermilion has one, and it's really cool to see some even smaller communities having organizations and having people getting really excited to see that pop up in their community. Because like you said, there are certain legislations that have happened in South Dakota, and we're not a political podcast, and we don't need to get into that. But it's awesome to see other organizations pop up and share the love and spread awareness, I guess, and just build a community to grow and share together. And that's really awesome to see in these smaller communities. So I guess the next thing I got to ask is what's some of the events going on with Aberdeen Pride? I know it is coming up here in the next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly, 1 week from today, next Saturday. So it starts at, like, we're doing it later in the evening, which is probably good. It's supposed to be hot. Around 6 p.m. is just going to be kind of a small get together outside the Red Rooster. We're going to have some live music and some karaoke and just kind of and some tables. I've got the Department of Health's coming. We've got Transformation Project. League of Women Voters, I think, is coming. Yeah, and then I have a tarot card reader that wanted to come, and I have just some other people that were like vendors that wanted to come and have tables, and it's just kind of going to be a pretty chill environment for a couple hours with the live music and the karaoke and stuff, and then afterwards, I had about 11 or so drag performers that are going to come from kind of all over the Midwest that volunteered their time, and they're going to perform at the Slackers Bar, which is just down the block on Main Street in Aberdeen, afterwards. So
nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to kind of transition our way sort of into Love, Simon here in just a second. But before we get into Love, Simon, this was not your first choice. And I do want to bring this up because there was a television show you brought up in our conversations of what you might want to come on and talk about. Can you tell us a little bit about that show? Because for me and Brian, it's hard enough to watch one movie a week for us sometimes with our schedules. But this show sounded super interesting. I believe it's called Scam, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, it's Scum. It's the Norwegian.
Scum. Okay.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite shows. I was introduced to it a while ago. And each season follows a different member of this like friend group, and Scum stands for shame in Norwegian. So each season follows that season's main character and what they're ashamed of, and kind of follows their growth and how they overcome it, basically. And in particular, there is a season 3 that follows a character named Isak, and he is struggling with coming to terms with being gay, which, even though Norway is a super, in general, welcoming and accepting country, there are still, it's not always for everybody. So he's struggling with that, and now he meets somebody, a guy at school that he just is kind of what's the word, smitten with, but this guy is in a relationship with a girl, and it's kind of complicated in that way. And it also touches on the topic of mental health, because the guy that he falls in love with has bipolar disorder, and that's so another thing that he has to kind of learn about. And they touch on it in just I think it's in a really nice way, because they don't make the disorder all the character is. It's just like, how do I explain that? I don't know. They just do it like to where the disorder isn't the person. He just is a person that happens to have bipolar disorder. And it's just a really beautiful love story. It's kind of hard to explain, and it became really popular, mostly because of that season. And it won some awards and like Norwegian television awards. And so it's they released it in kind of. They would release it in real time. Each clip would be released, like if it was a Wednesday at 8 p.m., they would release it that Wednesday at 8 p.m. And then at the end of the week, they would combine all the clips into one episode. So you would wake up and check the website and be like, oh my gosh, a clip was released. And they would create all these fake profiles for all the characters to kind of catch up what was happening with the characters outside the show, as if it was like a real story kind of as well. So it's an interesting way of doing it, and I'm kind of sad that it ended, but yeah.
No, that's awesome. Is that streaming somewhere? Is that on any streaming services that you know of?
They have we're called the Google Drive fandom, because a lot of people would translate the show with English subtitles and then upload all the episodes to a Google Drive and then share the link with however many people they could. So I think you can find them somewhere. with English subtitles. I mean, I speak Norwegian, so I watch it on the whenever I want to rewatch, I can just pull it up on the NRK, which is their broadcasting kind of like the BBC, but it's NRK. So I can pull it up on the app when I want to watch it. But if you do enough Googling, you can find it with English subtitles somewhere.
I was going to say, I just did a quick Google search, and it's on Daily Motion to find some of it. So that'll probably help for people out there wondering about the show and where to find it. And then the last question, as we're going to transition into a movie here, what's your favorite movie of all time? I know it's an impossible question, but what is your go-to movie?
You should really prep people when you're going to ask this question.
No, I just go straight in for.
He's like, I go straight for the jugular.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, a movie that that's hard. I mean, I was a big Lord of the Rings kid, and so and sometimes every once in a while, if I just am like, I want to watch a movie, I'm generally going to end up at home base, which is any of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. That's not including The Hobbit. But I don't know. That's the first one that popped in my head, so it's probably one of the Lord of the Rings. The Two Towers is my favorite of the three trilogy, but they're great movies. They're timeless.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice. That's a staple in our house of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. With that, though, is it the extended version or theatrical version that you prefer?
I mean, I haven't seen the extended version in a long time. I used to have it on DVD, and I can't find it. So recently, it's been more of just the theatrical version, but I do have the extended version somewhere.
Brian, I don't know where you stand on it. I'm full theatrical. There's a reason they cut out some of the stuff. Sorry, Peter Jackson.
It's like 6 hours. You need a whole day. Yeah.
Well, if you want, I've done the math. If you don't want to watch all three of them in a day, you need 12 hours
for all
three. Because that third one is like 4 hours long. That's the part I don't have a good answer for this because I've owned the extendeds on DVD and Blu-ray and digital, and yet to this day, I have yet to watch them. And I think it's partly because I don't know if I can mentally invest 12 hours.
That makes sense.
And Lord of the Rings is like, you can't just watch one. You have to watch all three if you're going to watch them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know how we transition from Lord of the Rings to Love, Simon, but we're just going to go for it. So this movie of the week is Love, Simon from 2018. Pretty new release, directed by Greg Berlanti, who is part of the Arrowverse, if I'm not mistaken. Brian, is that correct?
I believe so.
Like the Arrow, the Flash, the CW, DC shows. Stars just an incredible cast in this movie. Nick Robinson, Jennifer Garner, Josh Duhamel, Catherine Langford, Alexandra Shipp, Logan Miller, and Tony Hale is also in this movie as the vice principal, and we will definitely talk about Tony Hale in this movie. But it is basically a teen love story about a high school senior who is trying to basically just live his normal life, and he has one secret that he has not told anyone yet that he's known for a very long time, and that's he's gay. And that's basically what this story is about. And then he meets another student online that goes by different code names as he does as well. And they start writing these love stories to each other and telling each other about their lives and how they have not come out to anyone. And they find this relationship and bond between those emails. And of course, we'll get into some of the specifics with the movie. But Megan, what was it about Love, Simon in terms of a movie to pick from? Because this has been, when we first started this series last June, this was a movie that was thrown out quite a bit and it just was not chosen. So when you said Love, Simon, I'm like, yes, finally we get to talk about Love, Simon. What was it about this movie that made you want to come on and talk about it?
I mean, I just think it's a very, I wouldn't say stereotypical like love story because it's not, but it's I like it. I watch it when I want to watch a happy movie. But I don't want to watch, I don't know, a Disney Channel movie or something. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I like it. So I've seen it quite a few times. And so it was the first one that popped in my mind when I was thinking of, like what kind of like gay love story movies have I seen recently. And so, yeah, it was, and it's good and I like it. And I think it doesn't, while it doesn't really he's kind of, I wouldn't say he has an easy story, but I don't know. I'm bad at explaining it, but it's just, I guess it's just happy. And to put it in simple terms, it's a happy story, and it's just a feel good movie.
No, I think I understand what you're saying as somebody who only has just recently seen it and whatnot, is that it's a very good, like you said, it's a very good happy story. We don't get to see some of the darker tones of this type of environment or situation that someone would be in. But I think that actually plays to this movie because it's something where it's something we know that is probably there, but we don't have to see it. You don't have to have those dark undertones every single time you have a movie like this. And so I actually enjoyed the fact that, I didn't have that. I could just ride that wave of how, the ups of everything, as opposed to, having to throw in like a dark moment every once in a while. I was glad that they actually didn't do that.
Yeah. I've seen a couple like LGBTQ movies, and there's always some sort of tragedy that strikes. Someone dies, or someone's heart gets terribly broken, and then I'm upset. And while there was that big buildup, which we will obviously get to, but like there wasn't much of any trauma. So
yeah, this feels like it kind of harkens back to, I know this is used for every teen movie that comes out anymore, like a John Hughes movie. But for me, this feels the most like a John Hughes movie in terms of how the characters all interact with each other, and it is a straight up feel good movie because John Hughes would touch on some of those, subjects. Obviously, Breakfast Club is the biggest example of touching on things that are going through the lives of teenagers, but you never feel depressed watching Breakfast Club. You're always having a good time. Like those characters are going through some stuff that high schoolers do go through. But by the end of it, Bender's throwing his fist in the air at the end of the movie, and you're left on a happy note, and everything's great by the end. And that's what this movie is too. It leaves you off on a happy note at the end, and I think that's great to have in teens and teen comedies, is like have those happy ending. There's nothing wrong with having just everything wrapped up in a tight little bow at the end. I don't need a teenager dying in every teen movie. Sorry for the spit take, Brian.
I was like, if I remember correctly, this is also from the producers of The Fault in the Stars and whatnot. And immediately you're like, we don't need the dark undertones. I'm like, well, they're like, we got it out the first time.
I always give crap to the dying teen movie genre because it's like, okay, I get it. I don't need every movie that is with teenagers to be about one of them dying for some reason or another. It's like, just have a happy teen movie, and this is exactly what this movie is. And I mean, the casting in this movie is just incredible. I think Nick Robinson is just really great in this movie. I think it's the best performance I've seen him do, and I think he just really embodies this kid Simon, he's a normal teenager, and I think that's the biggest point of this movie, is that he is just like everybody we all went to high school with. We all know who Simon is. We went to school with him. We were friends with him or had classes with him. Everybody knows who this guy is. And it's sometimes characters or people have just one secret and they just cannot tell someone about it. And that's really what this movie is about. And I find that part of it fascinating, especially when obviously we're just going to jump around on this show because we'll touch
that
on
never happens.
That never happens. We don't follow a linear storyline like this movie does, but we'll just kind of jump around. And then where I'm going to jump into now is who he tells first, because to sort of set up some of the relationships with Simon, behind Brian, as you can see there, you have his friend group. So he has his best friend who's kind of he plays soccer. He's the, kind of a jock, but also kind of the kid who hangs out with like people who don't play sports or anything. And then he has his best friend, which is Catherine Langford's character, that have been best friends since they were kids. And she has a crush on him, which is very explicit, yet he does not see it. Like every teen boy would not see that. And then the latest to their group is Alexandra Shipp, who just moved into their town and has just started class with him a few months ago. So she's the newest member of their friend group, and that's who he comes out to first, is her. I find that very interesting. What were your guys' thoughts on him coming out to her first and being the first person that he ever tells this secret to?
It makes sense to me because it's harder to tell the people that you've known longest, which I can speak from experience. It's harder to tell the people you've known longest. So, I mean, that doesn't mean necessarily that he cares for her any less, but he just feels like maybe that she doesn't have this image of him that she's known for years already that is suddenly going to change by this news. So maybe that could be why he felt like a little bit safer, not really safer, but this is going to be the easiest one to tell first.
I think they allude to this in the film when he's talking to Langford, is that, you know, there is that long-term emotional investment that he's got with his friends and whatnot. Like you said, I mean, the people that you've known the longest, the ones that you've probably kept that secret the longest from, you know, it's easier to tell someone you've known for 6 months, because you know, basically if they turn ship and be like, you know what, I'm out, I can't do this. He hasn't lost that entire multi-year emotional investment in somebody who's going to turn on him, as opposed to like if he were to say it to, you know, his best friend and she turns, he's like, no, there's 13 years of my life, 15 years, whatever it is, of, you know, that I'm going to lose. So it's easier to lose somebody that you've only known for 6 months versus over a decade. So I think that's, it made perfect sense, I think, in regards to the people that, you know, basically in the order of which he tells people.
And he has a simple line in this movie that I find is just really effective when he's explaining to Langford why he told, you know, someone else before him. And basically all he says is, it was easier. And I'm like, that's such a simple line to throw into this movie of why the character did that. Yeah, and that's all that's needed, and makes total sense for the relationships that are set up in this movie. And that's what this movie does really well, is setting up who each character is and what their relationship is with each other. Because like I said, we all know these high schoolers. We all went to high school with these people, or we were these people. And it's easy to find what are the relationships, the dynamics between everybody, pretty much everybody in the high school, even of figuring out who they are. Because, I mean, unfortunately, we all had a Logan Miller in our high school, that little shit weasel in this movie. And
he's a beaver.
He's something. We got to talk about him at some point. But yeah, it's so easy.
The Freudian slip right here.
Yeah, there.
That was an A+ costume, though.
Yes, he had the best costume at this costume party. I don't know what everybody was talking about.
Yep.
But yeah, we all know everybody in this movie, and I find that's super charming and endearing. That's this movie is just that relatable. And then I unfortunately, I'm going to transition into something I don't know what you guys feel about. Is the only character in this movie that I don't feel is set in the real world, and that's the vice principal.
Absolutely.
How do you guys feel about Tony Hale? Because I love Tony Hale, but I think he's at like an 11, where the rest of this movie is at like an 8.
Oh, he felt like a character, like a character. Have you seen She's the Man with Amanda Bynes? It kind of reminded me of the headmaster. I don't remember the actor who plays him, but the headmaster in that movie, just kind of way over the top. I still enjoyed, I still thought he was funny, but yeah.
See, I would agree. Like, I enjoyed Tony Hale. I think he by far is a comedic genius in what he does. But no, I agree though. You know, he cranked it all the way up to the point where the speakers are crackling, and it's like, you know, he just needed to tone it down just a bit. Like there's parts about like that could have worked beautifully. In terms of, you know, and even making him more of a serious character while still having those comedic undertones, I think would have worked better anyway, because it is Tony Hale. But no, they're like, well, you know what? Just have at it. Just go and have fun and whatnot. And he's like the only part about this entire movie where I'm like, he takes you slightly out of the story, because he's just so. There's just parts he's like,
he's not in the real world.
No, no.
And I I guess I do understand where they're coming from, because I do find him really, like, I think his lines are really funny in this movie.
Mhm.
I think he is very funny in it. But like we said, he's kind of in a different movie, and it feels like he's in like a John Hughes movie. Like he would have been a principal in that movie. Like, think about like great teen comedies. All the principals or teachers have some sort of like over the top nature to them. And so I think that's what he fits into, but I don't know if that still works in 2018 when this came out,
Right.
of having that type of character while everybody else is pretty grounded and set in the real world. And I get why he's in it. It's just, I don't know, he might have been a little too much, and that's just one character, but out of an entire cast of great characters, I think that's incredible to have just one character that's like, I don't know, but everybody else is awesome and amazing in this movie.
I'll spin it this way. I mean, in terms of different characters in this movie and whatnot, there's the cafeteria scene where the teacher comes in and takes the two students from standing on the tables.
I love her.
Like the stuff, exactly. And the stuff that's coming out of her mouth, there's so much stuff you just cannot help but laugh and smile because she's absolutely amazing. It's that kind of tone that I wish I would have gotten out of Tony Hale.
Yes.
Because, you can throw the jabs, you can throw the lines, but you don't have, there's those little things where it's just like, okay, that was just a little bit too much. Like, just reel it in a little bit here. Like, if he would have had like her type of, part in the movie, he would have been perfect. I think it would have been great. Just give me more of like what she was like.
Yeah, she felt like a teacher we all probably had in high school. Like, we definitely knew, like, the one that
fun teacher that knew how to lay down the hammer and get you to cower when you need to be coward, but otherwise she's like, all right, let's just have a good time.
My German teacher, 100%.
I think it's every German teacher. I didn't even have German, and we had that German teacher at my high school.
I was going to say, mine was my Spanish teacher. I think it's just the foreign language teachers that just don't give a F in high school. And she feels very much like we said, like in the real world, and everything she's saying, it all feels like someone we know. And like, she has this fantastic line of when they're performing cabaret and practicing for it. She's like, what was it? She was an extra on The Lion King on Broadway, and now she's doing this. It's like such a great line. Yeah.
Or the fact that when they're doing the actual cabaret play and whatnot, and the side part of the sign falls down, and she's like, I can't do this anymore, and just walks off.
One of the the most accurate depictions of high school performance arts in this movie.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, High School Musical was like could never. This was
one movie. Like, it reminded me of last year we talked about Perks of Being a Wallflower, and they performed Rocky Horror. I'm like, no high school is performing Rocky Horror Picture Show to that elaborate effect. And then this one, like Brian said, the sign falls down like at the end of the performance, and it's Logan Miller's just hamming it up on the stage. It's like, yep, that's pretty accurate.
Yep.
I would just at least like to say, for the sake of Logan Miller, is, if anybody should have been turned to 11, it was his character, and I think he pulled it off beautifully. He rode that fine line of obnoxious but fun. So that, yes, I appreciate him, especially the cabaret stuff, because he was like almost like the kryptonite to the teacher. Like, I'm just gonna go all out, and she's just gonna be like, I can't do this anymore.
Okay, let's talk about him then. Logan Miller, Martin, the one that pushes kind of the story forward for this movie is, so while our main character Simon is emailing Blue back and forth, his secret admirer, secret crush. He accidentally leaves his email open on a school computer, and then Martin, Logan Miller's character, shows up and reads all these emails and takes screenshots of all of them and basically blackmails Simon to saying, I will release these onto our not Facebook for our high school, and everybody will know of your secrets unless you can hook me up with Alexandra Shipp in this movie. And that's really the catalyst for this entire movie of everything going forward. And just his little, like I said, he's a little shit weasel in this movie, but he's that little shit weasel we all knew in high school. And it's like, yeah, they might be, a weasel, but you're like, there's still something about you that I'm like, I still kind of like you, but you need to shape the hell up.
Yeah.
Did you guys feel that too?
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how far I should go because I don't want to give stuff away before we get to there.
Spoil it away. We always have spoilers. Yeah.
Well, like when the secrets come out and he Martin comes to apologizes. Like, I didn't know people were still like that, and that part honestly was super powerful to me because when what was I forgot his name, Simon, the main character's name, because he's like, I don't care if you didn't think that me coming out was going to be a big deal because that's my thing. You don't get to decide. And so that's like
a powerful scene.
Yeah, I thought that's probably my favorite part of the movie, to be honest. But
he's that character where it's like, yeah, like I said, like you need to shape up, but like there's still something about you we like, and I think that's really in the diner scene when they're at the pancake house, is that when he finally kind of gives Alexandra Shipp the courage to like be able to perform in front of people because she's his partner in the cabaret play that they're going to do. I'm like, that's a great scene and showing that he is still a person, even though he's not a movie character where he's like just the antagonist to Simon. He's also an actual person, an actual human being where he has multiple sides of himself and ways that he can interact with people, because it is obvious that he does have at least, I don't know, maybe he definitely has
depth.
He has, what's that?
He has some depth.
Yeah, he definitely has depth in this movie, and he has actual feelings towards Alexandra Shipp in this movie because of how he interacts with her. He's not just, oh, she's hot, I want to date her, which is kind of what he set up, but it shows like, no, he actually wants to get to know her and help her grow as a person as well, which is nice to see. And yeah, I think his character arc is kind of fascinating in this movie too, because by the end of it, when we get to the Ferris wheel, and he buys Simon this one last ride with just like crumbled up $1 bills. I'm like, that's at least a fun little like kind of redemption for him in a way.
Yeah, he does have growth. I'll give him that. Yeah.
He does have to kind of throw a little bit at the very end here before he hands over the dollars, though, when he's like, yes, I'm blue. No, really, I'm not. No, really, I'm not.
He didn't believe him for a second. He's like, no, you're not.
No, right. But no, I absolutely do think, is that there are aspects of it you want to hate him, and that's partly just because he outs Simon the way he does and whatnot. But yeah, he basically it's his way of saying, if you're not going to take my apology, I'm going to basically give you my apology in a way that's going to show you that I truly am sorry.
Yeah.
People make mistakes. There's forgive and all that stuff, and he's just like, I can't hopefully, make this happen and whatnot, but I'm going to do everything I can to try to fix what I can fix.
Yeah. There's a difference between saying sorry and that, like he does initially with their first interaction. And then there's a difference like between that and actually showing that you're sorry, which is kind of what he does in the end. Yeah.
Definitely the actions that speak louder than the words.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's one of those characters that you feel like Simon's group is like really ready to get out of high school, like they're kind of mature for their age, and then he's still the one that's like trying to catch up, like even present in their group, but like even with the picture behind Brian, he's behind everybody trying to catch up with them, and that's really feels like with like him trying to blackmail Simon, it's like he's just trying to catch up to being accepted in this high school. And I think that's something Simon can sort of relate to, and kind of why he begrudgingly befriends Martin in this movie, is that he does, I think Simon definitely does feel bad for Martin and how people treat him. Also that he's getting blackmailed, but I think there is, again, levels to that as well, of Simon's a good person and wants, Martin to feel accepted, just like Simon, if he was to get outed, would also want to have that same feeling from everybody in the high school, or especially his friend group, be accepted still.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit about Blue and the love story in this movie, because this kind of has like a mystery feel throughout this movie. You're like kind of like a whodunit, like, except instead of like someone's killing someone, it's different love letters, and Simon kind of figuring out, well, is it that person? Well, is it this person? Is it this person? And I love the aspect of that in this movie, because I don't know about you guys, I figured it out right away, and then when a certain scene happens at a party, I'm like, dang it, I thought I had it figured out, but I'm like, but it's still probably him, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I did enjoy about it, is that, you know, you're pretty confident. You're like, okay, this is what it is, and then they start laying seeds out throughout the film and whatnot that make you question and second guess yourself throughout the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
So the character so when he first gets introduced, he Blue, what's his name in this movie?
Bram.
Yeah.
Basically, they're eating lunch together, and he asks Simon if he can have his fries. And I'm like, there's something going on here. And like, you can just tell just from a simple line that there's something connecting these two together. And I don't know about you guys. I felt that right away. Did you guys feel that too? Of like, yeah, it's probably him. He's probably Blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when they go to this Halloween party, and, you know, Simon and Bram start hanging out, they party together, start singing karaoke together, play beer pong together. And then when Simon finally walks into this bedroom and finds Bram making out with some girl at the party, was it like, oh, well, I guess I'm wrong about that? Or was it like, well, there could still be something here? I don't know.
I don't know. I was disappointed. I was like, oh, maybe it could have been a false. I thought it was a false lead at first. I thought it was an intentional false lead. But then I was like, but why are they establishing this? Because they kept kind of establishing this strong friendship with them, because he kept popping up. He's the only one that kind of kept reappearing, even after the other ones would kind of fade into the background. He's the only one that kept reappearing. So after a while, I was like, oh, yeah.
You know, but I could also see that as the idea of if we keep having one pop up that maybe would make you second guess and be like, okay, now it's too easy. You know, we do eventually get to the end where like, okay, we were right the whole time, but you know, because of like those different nuggets, and even just the daydream scenes, if you want to call them that, of when he's trying to piece together who he thinks Blue is, that makes you start to second guess yourself, because you're like, okay, well, yes, Bram keeps popping up, but we've seen him at the party. Okay, maybe this is just I'm getting in my head, so I got to start trying to, you know, you're like Casey said, it's the whodunit. You're sitting here going, okay, well, if all the evidence in front of me says this, it can't be this here, so I need to try to look at the other pieces, and so you start to question yourself as much as Simon has questioned himself this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the movie does a good job of at least keeping you guessing, because Bram does show up throughout this movie, but I think it sets up early enough that, you know, the scene of Simon walking in on, you know, him and a girl making out. It's like, that's enough to at least make you question that it's not him from that point forward. So then when he does show up at the end, it's kind of like, oh, it was him. That's amazing. That's awesome. But I do think like the different other people that show up throughout this movie, like the Waffle House guy, or the kid who plays the piano for Cabaret, like those are good like misdirections as well for this movie too, because I think those do feel very organic as well, especially the piano player, because he has a great conversation at the end. It's just a simple conversation between him and Simon. Simon just asks him, "Are you Blue?" After he's been outed, and you know the guy says, "Well, no, I'm not him. I'm sorry." But he's like, "Well, do you want to talk about it? Do you need someone to talk to?" Because he knows what Simon's been through at this point. I'm like, that's such a nice little thing to throw in there. It could have been just a throwaway thing, and it kind of is, but it's like, that's a nice little line to throw in there for a character that like is not a real character in the movie, but like we kind of know him at least on the peripheral, like on the outside, we know who he is. But so when we get to Simon's secret getting revealed, this happens because of Logan's Miller's character, who is also the school mascot, because of course he is. It only makes sense that he is.
He's the type of character that's going to be the school mascot.
Mhm.
This is that whole like she's all that like trope. Like, okay, the weird quirky kid that's just a little off, whatever. Yeah, of course he's the mascot.
Yeah, obviously he's the. And they have a little joke about that too. Like when he takes his helmet off, Simon's like, "Well, of course it's you."
Yeah.
And he has this like I said, like 10 things I hate about you style of like proposal or like will you go out with me moments, and it's just this big grand gesture of during the national anthem grabs the microphone from the one of the girls in the class and basically professes his love towards Alexandra Shipp, and she just is not having it and says just kindly no, I will not go out with you. What a great cringe moment. One of the great cringe moments of any teen comedy. It's a great like asking out moment too of teen comedies, like right up there with Heath Ledger like dancing on the bleachers in 10 Things I Hate About You. I loved that scene. I thought it was so great.
Well, and the one thing I'll say about that scene, and especially for Martin, is the fact that, you know, he's tried to make this build up and whatnot, and you're hoping that things are going to go his way and whatnot. And even though he's that quirky guy that is kind of annoying and doing those little things that just kind of that get on your nerves, you legit feel bad for him because, you know, he's done all, like you said, this grand gesture and to basically get, you know, turned down on top of the fact that, you know, he ends up with the whole getting himself put online and, you know, people making fun of him and whatnot. You genuinely feel bad for him, you know, regardless of what he's done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys want her to say yes?
No. I don't know. I liked her and what's Simon's friend's name? I forgot his name. I mean, I don't think that every person needs a romantic interest, but if they were going to pair her with someone, I liked her and his friend, like whose name is escaping me at the moment. Because they just had more chemistry. They did. I mean, Martin and
Nick.
Nick. There we go. But Martin and Abby had that one moment at the diner that I thought was really great, and then they had, you know, a couple cool friendship moments. They seemed to be good friends after that, but that's just kind of how I saw them, was just as friends, which was unfortunate for Martin because he was seeing it in another way. But been there, so.
I do agree with that. It's like, yeah, in a way I wanted her to say yes just because you feel bad for him.
Yeah, you don't want the cringe and the please. I was the vice principal was like, say yes,
just please say yes.
Yeah.
At least tell him no later when there's not a huge crowd.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing with his character of Logan Miller's character when Simon is going to show this big grand gesture of the Ferris wheel of like, I'm going to ride this thing until Blue shows up. And if he doesn't show up, then that I gave it my shot. I think he also, gained some of that confidence from Logan Miller's character, Martin, maybe a big grand gesture is what I need to do to finally, I've done everything I could up to that point, maybe a big grand gesture. And if it fails miserably, well, it's probably not as bad as the kid who asked out a girl while wearing the school mascots during the middle of the national anthem.
Yeah.
Right. I do enjoy that when he shows up at the Ferris wheel and just hands the dude like 50 tickets. Like, I'm just going to be riding this all night. Don't even take me out.
So let's jump into that, because that's kind of where I was going to go next, because after, you know, Martin basically professes his love to Alexandra Shipp and she says no, and he basically just blames all that on Simon, like, hey, what are you doing? Like, this was our deal. She was supposed to go out with me. I'm going to get pissed off and I'm going to release all your emails between you and Blue onto our school's social media thing that they have. And that's where everybody figures out that you know, Simon's secret. And I think that's such a I don't know how I feel about that moment, because that's where you hate Logan Miller's character. You're like, yeah, that was a shitty move, dude. Like, you shouldn't have done that. And
even some of the stuff that he says in that post too, about, you know, the girls not apply, and some of the things that he says within the context of that post itself. Like, you can tell it was a complete rage. It was a rage moment. Absolutely.
definitely out of spite of what just happened to himself, of how am I going to take this out on someone else so I don't have to think about me or have the school even think about me doing this
He was
grand
trying
gesture.
to deflect.
Yes, and I mean it definitely did in terms of what was going on in their school after this, and what it did to Simon's friend group after this too, because by this point he has told Alexandra Shipp his secret, so she is the only one that has known at this point. And then when it finally gets outed to everybody out there, that's where everybody figures out, and they figure out why he did all this. And this is also where conflict comes up between him and his friends, especially with Catherine Langford, who is his best friend, like we said, that he grew up with, who he convinces needs to go out with his male best friend Nick. And obviously, again, this is kind of the same thing with like Logan Miller and Alexander Shipp, where you see the friendship, but there's not a relationship type of feelings between the two. You can definitely tell there's a friendship between Catherine Langford and his friend Nick, but there isn't a romantic relationship within that. And that's something he builds because he doesn't know how to deflect his own way of Catherine Langford trying to profess her love to Simon. He doesn't know how to respond to that. And how did you guys feel about like the friendships all kind of getting mixed up and basically breaking up kind of in the third act of this movie towards the beginning of that act?
I don't know. I mean, granted, it kind of what Simon did wasn't great the way he went about things, but I did think that his friends were a little bit unfair and judgmental at first. They didn't really stop to get his side of story right away. They immediately just were like, what the heck, man, and just left. Like, and so I was like, hey now, like you need to understand his point of view, where it was coming from, because it's a lot harder than you think it is. And so I thought it was unfair of them at first.
I completely agree. That was one of the biggest things I took away from that scene on the corner, was that he's like, they asked, well, why? How could you do this? And he's like, I was being blackmailed. It was this, and this. Like, he presented himself and why he did what he did, and all that stuff, and if you're talking about friends that have known each other for as many years as you have and whatnot, you need to take that with some respect to the person who's trying to tell you what's happening, what's going on, and whatnot. So I do agree. I think there was a little bit of that jumping of the gun. They immediately we're just pissed off. It doesn't matter what you have to say.
Yeah.
For me, it felt like that stereotypical like movie moment of like, all right, here we are, second act. All of our main characters have to split up. There has to be more conflict for our main character in this movie, where no one is on his side. But by the end, they'll all be back together and everything will be perfect. It's like, yeah, but everything else up to that point was kind of breaking all the rules of typical teen movies of, oh no, some secret gets outed and then everybody splits up, but by the end of it, they're all back together. It's like this movie was kind of subverting a lot of that until that happened. And I'm like, I didn't need that in this movie. This movie was working without the friends splitting up by the end of it. Yeah. And then go ahead.
What was Catherine? Is it Catherine Langford, the actress? Yeah. Her character, when she was like, when they say like, you could have told me and you could have told me how this was happening. That's when you're dealing with like a secret like that, you kind of tell yourself that you can't, even if you know the person forever. You're like, yeah, I can't. This is you don't know how the person's going to react, even if you've known the person forever. So it was just unfair of them to be like, you should have told me. Like, you had no reason to not tell me. And I'm like, well.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Where I think the movie kind of makes up for it in this kind of same moments is that, his friends are all gone and they're not talking to him at this time. And this is kind of over Christmas break from school, is that his family also finds out at this point. And it's his little sister who finds out, who is also, I would assume, is attending the same school as him. And she finds out, and after reading the social media post, and she's like, well, do you want to talk about it? And do you need someone to talk to? And he kind of just throws it off to the side for now, but she knows, and she never tells the parents. And I think she's such a great little little sister character in this movie, and totally fun to have this in the movie, and great comedy stuff with her, especially with her cooking. Or bad cooking at that a lot of the times, but the moment like at Christmas when he tells his parents, it's like that's such a great moment of like, okay, Martin took away the moment I could tell my friends. He's not going to do the same thing here to my parents, and at this moment right here right now I'm going to tell them. And I think that's where it makes up for the friends kind of disappearing, is how his parents react, because Jennifer Gardner and Josh Duhamel are so good in this movie, like crazy good in this movie as the parents. Both have just great scenes with Nate Robinson, with Simon in this movie. I think it's just they're such great movie parents in this movie.
I would say all four, between him, the daughter, and the two of them, whatever, they all as a family have such an amazing chemistry that really exudes off the screen. But I will certainly say, especially for Josh Duhamel, I want him to be every sappy dad in a teen movie going forward. Like, he's got that, that chiseled face and whatnot, that everybody, the handsome face and whatnot. But the way he pulls off the emotion, like I'm that sappy dad that is just the great big teddy bear. I'm like, I want you in every movie now like that. Like, I don't need you in Transformers. I need you in some teen rom-com now.
Yeah.
And I agree. Jennifer Gardner, I think, does very well as the mom in this and whatnot. Especially, the look on her face when he's telling them, and she's the psychiatrist. These are the kind of things that she should be picking up on years ago. And just because she's not in her work environment, she doesn't pick up on the subtle nuances that even he himself doesn't realize he's giving off. And just that, look of, I should have seen it coming. I should have, and just knowing that she wants to be there to be very supportive of him in the process.
Yeah.
I think they both have really great moments, like aside from the family, where they have like single moments with Simon in this movie. Of he tells them at Christmas, and it's kind of like, well, that's okay, that's fine. Like, we accept that, we accept who you are and who you are as a person. But it's the single moments with both his mom and dad that like are just like cutting onions during those scenes of when he first talks to Jennifer Gardner, and basically she tells him, like, you're still you're still the same person, no matter what you have told us, you're the exact same person.
Or you get to breathe again, that line, that got me, not gonna lie.
And then I think the scene, like this movie, like I usually don't cry during movies, but this movie just kept getting me, and I was like, man, what's going on with this movie? But it just kept getting me more and more. But the scene that got me the most is the scene with Josh Duhamel of his dad's outside working in the garage or whatever, and he comes home, and basically the dad is like kind of apologizing of not like realizing it sooner, and still like making certain jokes and stuff about it. And when he just starts crying and just like, I'm like, it's just, I don't know, this because you don't see too many movies where the dad is that supportive of their son or daughter coming out, and it's just the emotion that Josh Duhamel has in this movie is just incredible. I think this is probably his best performance ever, I would say, is in this movie. Sorry, Transformers, like Brian said.
Right.
But he's so good in this movie. Like you said, I want him to be every sappy dad in every movie now. And he's so great at in this movie. And I love his incompetence of trying to make this movie for his wife, and he has to have his son help him with it just because he wants to try so hard, but he just can't do it. And there's maybe my favorite funny line of this movie of like, Simon's like, this looks like a fourth grader made it. Not even the best fourth grader in the class, like the average one.
Right. But I've got transitions.
And the song playing in the background. Yeah.
Or the fact that he's like, oh, this is great. You don't know how to export it, do you?
Yeah.
some of the other scenes I do want to talk about are kind of some of the little moments in this movie, because there's the moment where when Simon is talking to Blue through their emails and talking about, well, maybe I'll just wait till college and then I'm out of the house, I'm out of high school, that environment, and I can finally come out then. And he has this kind of musical montage of him in college in his dorm room, and like has all these posters and the pride flag and stuff on his wall, and has this big song and dance number throughout the like corridors of the college. And he's like, well, maybe not like that.
Maybe not that gay.
Maybe not that gay. Yeah. It's like, it's such a funny moment of like, last week we talked about But I'm a Cheerleader, where that movie is like turned up to an 11 and it's not in our real world. And that's that little sequence in this movie. Like, But I'm a Cheerleader set within that dream of Simon that he has in college, whereas the rest of the movie is set kind of in the real world. And I think that's such a funny moment in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's about that moment that I just kind of had somewhat of a realization, and especially with the picture behind me and whatnot, is that when he does have that moment and whatnot, everything is very colorful, very vibrant, very very
dreamlike.
Dreamlike in the flag and whatnot. But anything really outside of that, while he's still trying to go through all this here, all of the colors are very muted and very like dark and whatnot. Like, everybody for the most part has their colors, but I mean, even when Alexander Shipp is being Wonder Woman, she's got a dark red kind of thing, where it's not until we get really towards the end where those colors really start to brighten up, because he's able to be more comfortable in himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and that's one thing with this movie we talked about last week, with like the bright blues and bright pinks of being kind of elseworldly, like it's in a Twilight Zone. This movie is like, no, this is just the real world. Mm-hmm. And that's what this feels like. No, nothing besides Tony Hale feels outside of the real world in this movie.
Right. Tony Hale's just a cartoon character.
He is kind of a cartoon character in this, but that's okay. So when we get to the ending, with the Ferris wheel, I want to jump to that portion of this movie, once more, because when we finally get to Bram revealing himself as Blue, as the character that's been emailing back and forth with Simon this whole time, I want to get your opinion on if we needed that moment of this movie. Do you guys feel we needed to see who Blue was, or was Simon's story kind of already progressed of, well, he didn't need to meet Blue by the end of this?
Well, I never thought about it that way, I guess. I always wanted, I love a good I love closure. Mm-hmm. So I always wanted to know who he was, but I guess I didn't think about it like that, where, he got closure in the sense of with his family and friends.
Yeah.
So it probably could have ended without it, but
could it have ended that way? Sure, absolutely. But this is not the kind of movie where you're intending to have essentially more than one movie and whatnot. So you need to have that kind of.
No, you just get one movie and a TV show.
Right. I know, a TV show with 2 seasons coming. I know, I get that.
Hey, I'm so excited for that second season.
But it's also not the same kid though, too. So we need to see the end. We need to see the end of Simon's story. We needed that closure and whatnot. So I do think, for the sake that we did need to, see that scene.
Have you seen Love, Victor?
No.
Oh, Simon is in it.
Well, that works. I do know. All I know is that it takes place. I knew that it takes place in the same like school and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just to quickly go slightly off kilter. Mm-hmm. It takes place. This kid moves to the same town, to Atlanta, the same high school. Finds out about Simon Spear. Like this Victor knows that he's gay, but he has no way of like. His family's complete opposite of Simon's family, very religious and strict. And like they're a good, sweet family, but he's very scared of this part of him. And so he finds out about Simon, and he's like, you know what, screw you. He messaged him on Instagram, basically. He's like, screw you, Simon, for having the perfect family and the perfect story. I can't go anywhere without hearing about Simon Spear. And Simon actually is technically in every episode because he exchanged messages with Victor, kind of coaching him throughout the entire series. And then in one episode, he actually goes to New York to meet with Simon and Bram. So you kind of get a little bit of seeing into Simon's future.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching that at some point in the next week or two.
Hey, new season comes out on the 11th, so you got some time to binge the first one.
Perfect. For me, like with the ending though, I as maybe like in a snooty film way of like maybe it didn't need to end with the two meeting each other by the end of it, because like we said, Simon's really his arc is already wrapped up before he even hops on that Ferris wheel. It's really like him finally having the courage to tell his friends, tell his family. The entire school knows at this moment, and he's able to move forward in his life and continue to be himself and truly be himself finally. And I don't know if he never ever needed to meet Blue, but
who's to say that this isn't? But who's to say this is Simon's ending though?
Yeah, it started with Blue though. If he saw the message from Blue, that's why his whole thing started.
Yeah. So I agree that, you know, we Simon's got his closure in terms of his friends and his family or something like that. But this is Bram's closure also. This is him going, you know, nobody knew up until this exact moment that I was Blue. So as much as it's Simon's closure, it's Bram's closure. That's
true. Yep.
But my big but with it is I like when a movie ends with a feel-good moment, and that's exactly what this is. You're like, as an audience member, you're like, well, yes, obviously I want to know who Blue was, and I want to see him and Simon together, and I want to see them riding the Ferris wheel. And that's how this movie culminates, and that's the big culmination of this movie. And as an audience member, yes, obviously you do want that, and I think it is a great, nice bow ribbon on top of this entire movie. And I do think it is needed to know who he is, but I think there is a version of this movie out there that Blue does not show up on that Ferris wheel, and I think that's kind of at least interesting to think about, that he does not show up on this. But I think it is a nice ending to this movie. And I love at the end of the movie where it mirrors the opening of the movie, where he's going to get iced coffee for him and his friends, and they have to get 5 of them this time. And it's like, it's such a nice little thing. And reminds me, like with the ending of them kind of riding off into the hills, kind of going into whatever their future leads of Perks of Being a Wallflower, the same kind of ending of like just driving off into our future, our unknown future after high school and wherever that could lead for us. I guess I'm going to go into asking both of you, is there any other scenes or moments you guys would like to talk about with Love, Simon?
No, I think we already, like I said, my favorite scene was his confrontation with Martin, because we kind of see him just kind of explode, which we see he's pretty chill the whole movie, and this was his big explosive scene. So I really liked that one. So
yeah, I'd definitely have to agree with that. I definitely would.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to jump into, let's get our final thoughts on this movie, and then I do have one more question for all three of us here. So Brian, if you want to start here, final thoughts on Love, Simon.
Well, I would certainly say is I'm honestly, I'm glad that I hadn't seen this yet for us to be able to talk about it today, because like you said, this was one of those ones that it was potentially going to be one that we were going to do last year, and I have owned this movie digitally since last year, and to be able to sit down and be able to watch it now and get through that, it's an absolutely a breathtaking movie. I mean, I'm so glad to have been able to experience and encourage people to watch this movie, especially if you're a teenager, that is just trying to, figure out who you are. I'm definitely, there are so many, I guess people call me an emotionless bastard, so maybe I didn't get to the complete verge of tears like you did, Casey, and whatnot. But, you definitely feel it in your chest because I look at it from like the Josh Duhamel kind of side of things here. I've got 2 boys that, they're just in kindergarten, but you're talking about, I that's the kind of relationship and type of thing I want to have with my kids and whatnot, to be able to say, hey, you can talk to me. We're still going to have a good, strong relationship. And so I look at Simon and go, whatever my future might hold, I just want to be able to look at this and say, okay, this is a good representation of who someone needs to be.
Yeah, I echo those same sentiments. Like, this was a first time watch for me, and I immediately after I finished it, I'm like, well, I kind of just want to push play again and just watch it right after again, because I was cutting onions this entire movie. Like, it had me just in, like, every 10 minutes it felt like it was just like a big emotional moment, and like just hit me in a way I was not expecting. And I think it's just because of how relatable this movie is to anyone, because we've all gone through high school and we all know the struggles of going through just trying to survive high school. And I think this movie is just a great representation of that. I think it's one of the best teen comedies of the last 20 years. I think it's just, it's just a remarkable movie with excellent casting, excellent characters, and someone in this movie everybody can relate to. Each character, you can find yourself in one of them. And unfortunately, we all know a Logan Miller out there, but I think this is definitely a movie those type of people definitely should see, and see the wrongs of being that type of person in high school. And again, his character shows growth, and I think that all the characters really show growth in this movie, and ability to move forward and move on. And like we said, the parents in this movie, I think, is maybe my favorite aspect of it going in this time, of how much I loved the parents in this movie and their relationship with each other and with Simon and with the entire family. I mean, there's a one funny line I want to bring up with the parents here is when they come back from the Halloween party and Simon is just plastered, and Catherine Langford has to help him into bed, and they're sitting on the couch and they're like, yeah, our 18-year-old son is drunk after a party. We're still good parents, right? He didn't drive home.
Well,
He's back home 10 minutes before we asked him to be. Like, yes, I want to be those type of parents.
Right.
Yeah, we're good parents. We're good parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of parent you honestly, I feel personally, is that you want to be, is that he may have done something, whatever the case is, but he's home, he's safe, he's home before he's supposed to be, kind of thing, and whatnot, and a person has to live their life, and if you give them a little bit of those freedoms and whatnot, they're not going to like try to push you away and shun you for being the overbearing parents. So no, I think that is like a perfect scene for that. They're just like, he's fine, so let's just move on. It's not something we have to be concerned with.
Yeah, so I to put it simply, I loved Love, Simon.
I'm glad you guys liked it. Yeah, I was kind of, because it's a very, cliche, story. And so I was like, oh, do I want to come and talk about Love, Simon? Or are they just going to be like, this was a really cliche movie? So, it
has a lot of those cliches in it, but I don't think they don't overdo it. They do it where it needs to be, and I think it's executed beautifully to the point where, cliche or not, like say Logan Miller's character, whatever the case is, but like we've already alluded to, the only like super over the top cliche that just doesn't work is Tony Hale. Everything else just seems to flow and magically blend together like it should.
I think the magic of this movie is that it is cliche, but every character is super relatable. And that's where I find this movie really stands out. Is it's okay to have cliche stories. It's that the characters inside those stories need to be relatable and personal and have character arcs. And this movie has one for almost every character in the movie. And I find that really remarkable for such a big cast in this movie. And yeah, I think that's where cliches, it's like, I don't care if it's a cliche or not. Have great stories within those cliches. And that's definitely what this movie has.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to work for a Harry Potter website when I was in a few years ago, mugglenet.com, and I got to go to Sundance Film Festival and cover it for press in 2019. And so I actually got to meet Nick Robinson. He was there promoting, I don't remember the movie he was there promoting, but he's Simon, basically. He's super chill, super nice. So I thought that was really cool. I wish I could remember the movie he was promoting. I don't remember what it was, but Native Son. It's called Native Son. There we go. But yeah, this one and like Jurassic World were like the only two movies I had seen him in. So, but
The one more thing before I ask my final question. So you mentioned Harry Potter. There's a great Harry Potter joke in this movie, and I find it so funny of his like recurring dream of Daniel Radcliffe, because he has a Daniel Radcliffe Harry Potter poster hanging across his bed. I'm like, that's a great funny scene in this movie, and it's again, anybody relates to that going through puberty. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then the last question I do have for all three of us: if you were going to pair Love, Simon with another movie for a double feature, what's the other movie you would pair it with?
For a double feature? Ooh, I don't know. Somebody else go. I gotta think.
Do you got one, Brian?
I do, and we've already talked about it a little bit briefly and whatnot. Just for the sake of like the teenage side of things and whatnot, and just kind of keeping with the themes. Is I would want to pair this with Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's the teen story. You know, again, there's probably some little bit of cliches and whatnot, but you know, the teen story, the coming of age, all that stuff. I don't know. I think something about these two, I think, would be very well paired together. I do think maybe doing Perks first and doing Love, Simon second, just so we can leave on a much kind of a higher note, because I think Perks of Being a Wallflower is a little bit darker than obviously Love, Simon is. So maybe start that way and upwards maybe, but I would put those two together.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know why this movie popped into my head. Maybe it's because it was more when I was like in middle school. But do you guys know the movie A Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I don't know why, but maybe it's because they're like both kind of like coming into their own selves in different ways, but they kind of, I don't know. That's what I would do. I love Hilary Duff.
I think that'd be fun. Again, movies that are cliche but like have fun with being cliche. Mine I would go with, just because like the scene, like I said, of him like dreaming about being in college reminds me of a scene in 500 Days of Summer with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel. Like, that's what I would pair it with. I think that's also another great modern love story rom-com movie. A little bit older, not necessarily coming of age, but another great love story, romantic comedy, and one of my favorites in that genre. So I think that would pair pretty well with Love, Simon. Probably go with Love, Simon second, because it has a happy ending, and start with 500 Days of Summer. But that's what I would pair it with. So
I still need to see that movie.
Oh, it's great. I actually really dig that movie. Like the other night we were trying, so I'm going to go on a tangent here. We were trying to find a romance movie. We watched, what was it? Me Before You.
No.
Yeah, we watched that.
No.
My fiance Kayla loves it, and I was like, okay, well then I get to pick the next one we're watching. So I pulled out 500 Days of Summer or 10 Things I Hate About You, and I was got a big no from both of those. But I will eventually convince her to watch 500 Days of Summer, and she will see why I love that movie. But
how could she hate 10 Things I Hate About You?
She just didn't want to. Was not in the mood to watch a 90s comedy. She wanted the sappy Notebook style. I'm like, I can't take two of them in one night.
Where they die in the end?
Yeah.
I will say this
again,
for the sake
dying
of,
people is not my thing in romance movies.
I will say one thing about Love, Simon here that it did throw me off a little bit here is this movie comes out in 2018, right? And then what made me think about it is like the 90s, early 2000s is that Logan Miller finds his emails on his school computer that he's logged into, which obviously if you're using a public computer, you log out of your shit. I mean, that's just 101.
Like mistake number one, Simon.
Mistake number one. But number two, this is 2018. What kid uses the school computer to check their emails? That would have been on his phone.
That's true.
I'm just saying, like, all this time he's on his computer and his laptop doing all the stuff, whatever. I was like, no kid in 2018 is doing that on their computer. They're doing it on their phone.
Is this when his phone is taken away by Tony Hale, though?
Oh, it could have been. It could have been.
I think it might have. I don't recall where that happens in terms of the movie. That might have been when it happens.
But he also was checking on his laptop at home too.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was in high school from 2007 to 2011, and we had school issued laptops. So that's not like we had also school emails. So that's where I checked my email. I didn't, and smartphones weren't a thing. So that's where I did all my secret messaging, but different times.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna kind of wrap this thing up. Love, Simon. I don't. Is it streaming anywhere? I own the movie, so I didn't stream it anywhere.
I own it on Amazon Instant Video. I don't know if it's you would because maybe on Hulu.
Yeah, I was gonna say Love Victor is on Hulu. I would assume it might be on there as well, but I will let Brian check that out as we're doing some of the plugs here. And Brian,
no,
it is not. Okay, you can rent it anywhere.
Not unless you got Hubo.
I don't know what that is.
So Fubo. It's which is weird. They get lots of movies that are like streaming and they only have them for their period of time, but they're mainly meant for sports. I've never understood that.
So just rent the movie because nobody has that streaming service. So go check it out if you haven't watched it, or give it a rewatch. Definitely worth that. And
it's not worth a rent. It's worth just go out and buy it.
Yeah, it is definitely worth the purchase. But yeah, we're gonna jump into some of the plugs that we have here. If you like what we're doing here on the show and you want to hear more of this podcast, you can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and on YouTube as we continue our Pride Month here for the month of June, talking about different movies with Pride themes to them. Next week's will be very different from the first two that we have covered, as we talked about. But I'm a Cheerleader last week, and then Love, Simon this week. Next week's I will just plug it right here. We are talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge from 1985, and some of the subtext of that movie. I don't think it's much subtext. I was
going to say subtext. It's just straight text.
I think nowadays it is just straight text from that movie, and I'm very excited to talk about that, obviously, because I am a weirdo who has an entire wall in his office of Freddy Krueger merchandise, and I can't wait to talk about Freddy's Dead next week. But Brian, where can they find us on social media?
On social media, it's all at Backlot605. You can check us out: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now our Letterboxd HQ. Definitely go check those out. We also have the South Dakota Film Community Group on Facebook. Join the conversation. We just like to talk about movies and see what everybody's got going on.
Mm-hmm. And we do also want to plug with the South Dakota Film Community Group on June 30th. We are doing another South Dakota Film Community Group meetup at Full Circle Book Co-op, downtown Sioux Falls, 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. We are going to be talking about some Pride movies, especially The Birdcage, because the week before Full Circle is playing The Birdcage there as well. I believe on the 23rd.
See, the 23rd or the 22nd?
22nd, I believe it is, on a Tuesday night. So definitely go check that out. I love The Birdcage. If people out there have not seen The Birdcage, definitely check it out. It's a great comedy. Brian, we need to go watch it. I love The Birdcage. It's so funny. Such a great movie. But yeah, we're going to be talking about that and some other Pride movies during that month. And then also, if you'd like to support the show, we are on Patreon as well. Patreon.com/Backlot605. We have $1, $3, $5 tiers that are kind of a monthly subscription base. So you can help support the show there. I believe, Brian, we have our monthly bonus episode decided, I believe, for this month. I think a certain series about fast cars, bald heads, and Coronas we might be discussing on our bonus episode.
Hey, maybe why not?
Yeah, we might be talking some Fast 9 because it is all about family on this show. We will be talking about that movie
about the family
for our bonus episode. So be on the lookout for that when that comes out here in June. But yeah, I don't think we have anything else to plug. I'm going to throw it off to Megan one more time. Where can they find Aberdeen Pride online, and where can they find some of the events that are going on?
Right now, we just have a Facebook page. So if you just go to Facebook, type, I think our @ is at Aberdeen Pride Fest. So that's where we're at on Facebook. And then if you go to the Facebook page, we have on the events tab all the events we have going on so far. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for choosing Love, Simon. We are so glad that we finally had a chance to watch this movie and had this on the show. Do you have any other things you'd like to plug or promote before we wrap things up here?
We have I don't know if you guys have seen our t-shirt fundraiser for Aberdeen Pride Fest, but it's on Bonfire, and it says Gay Faces, Gay Places, South Dakota, and it features Mount Rushmore in drag. We've had a lot of people liking them, and they're for sale on Bonfire. You can find the link on the Facebook page. Until June 16th is when the campaign ends for the year. I'm officially closing it for the year on the 16th. I've reopened it 3 times already because people wanted more. So yeah, if that seems like a shirt you'd want, you can find that on our Facebook.
Awesome.
Absolutely, that sounds awesome. We love a good play on Mount Rushmore, as we have we have our own that was not that was 420 themed with our Mount Cushmore, Mount Rushmore of stoners on it. So I might need to pick up both of those shirts and add some Mount Rushmore merchandise to that is not our actual presidents on it. I think that's more appropriate. But Megan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. This has been a blast, and we'll have to have you come on next year and talk about something else. So I'll give you another year to think of something else to come on and talk about. But
give her a little more time.
Yeah, we'll give you a little more time to do that. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So as we're going to wrap things up here, for Brian Mensing, I'm Casey Kelderman, and we will see you all next time on the Backlot of South Dakota.
Bye.